Yep, just waiting for the Sheikh to return, and then as soon as the Sheikh returns, we'll start straight away. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh. Are you ready?
Alaikum salam barakatuh.
You ready, Sheikh?
When you are.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome everyone to part 3 of the brief history of the Afro Caribbean Muslim community in Brixton. Today we have two esteemed guests. We have with us, mashallah, Sheikh Muhammad Kamaluddin, and we have another esteemed guest, Abu Abdurrahman Anderson. Now, what is very important in this discussion about the history is to get a bit of understanding of the individuals who are behind the growth of this community. So we have one of our elders, and we could say one of our youngers in Abdul Rahman. So what we're going to first do is find out a bit about their background, how they became Muslim, and how they came to know about Brixton Masjid and their involvement in the community. So first of all, we will start with our Sheikh, Muhammad Kamaluddin. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum salam wa barakatuh.
How you doing, Sheikh? I love the hat, the Gambian hat, mashallah. I see you're a keen supporter, mashallah. Obviously, you were involved in the Brixton community, the Afro Caribbean Muslim community, from the very beginning. And it is part of our, what we want to do is find out a bit more about the individuals who are involved in the community. And we'd like to hear, first of all, how you came to Islam and how you got first involved in the community. So I'll hand the mic over to you, and we await your story, inshallah. Jazakallah khairan.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillah Rabbil Alamin. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasul. Amma ba'd. I came to Islam in the month of Shawwal, 1975.
MashaAllah.
Previously, before that, I was in entertainment business. I was in the recording industry, music, and management. I was asked to manage one of our artists, Jimmy Cliff. At the time, he just made the film The Harder They Come, and the song was in the charts. And because of my reputation as a musician, I was trained classical music in the Jamaica Police Force when I was a cop there. And with my knowledge of music, he asked me to manage him. So I started, become his manager. And we used to know each other on the road before that event. But when I was in Italy on a tour, he called me, I came over, sat with him, and I see a complete changed person from what I used to know him. On my inquiry of his behavior and attitude, he told me he was a Muslim.
Okay.
I spent 3 days with him, and it was very interesting, the way he behaved. So further inquiry, he told me he was a member of the Nation of Islam. So that's the first time I heard about Islam from any individual, was via the Nation of Islam called to Islam. Few months later, we went on a tour to Nigeria, and I questioned a Muslim about the type of Islam that Farrakhan and Elijah Muhammad called into. And they told me that this was incorrect. And they explained to me what Islam was. So I had a two version of Islam in my heart. Coming back to London, we completed the tour of the Caribbean. And in Jamaica, we broke up the band. And I came back to London, studied Islam for another 6 months. And eventually I went to East London and was given Shahada by the Imam there in a small mosque in the month of Shawwal. It was the end of Shawwal, so I proceed to investigate what's coming next, the month of Ramadan.
Sheikh, can I interrupt you, Sheikh? Sorry.
Please do.
Why did the band break up? Was it because of Islam, or you just wanted to leave the band? Why did the band break up?
I was the leader of the band, and after touring America,
yes,
touring the Caribbean and Africa, I came to the conclusion that Islam was not for me, music was not for me anymore.
Okay.
So on three of us in the band, having heard Farrakhan speak in Temple Number 7 in the States, we conclude that what we learned about Islam in Africa was not the Islam that was correct to be followed. So we decided to break the band up.
Okay.
And I came back to London, studied for about 6 months, reading, and eventually took my Shahada in East London. And I went to Central Mosque in the month of Ramadan. I spent the whole month of Ramadan in Central Mosque, a small tent they had. There was no mosque there, a small tent, but about 30 Muslims. And the Shiuks was from Egypt. They entertained us and this is what they did. During that month, I met a brother called Hamid from Trinidad. We fused together. We were the only Afro Caribbean in the mosque at the time. There were students from all over Arabia who were attending university here.
So was you doing itikaf in the mosque? Was you
we did everything.
There? Okay.
We did everything. We came home some night we came home, some night we stayed there. We learned a lot in the first month, and it was very interesting and welcoming, everybody eating together, sharing together. It was not the life that I was accustomed to, and it was very, very interesting and made me very happy to be among people I didn't know. And going back to what Farrakhan was calling to racism, and we saw different people, different race and nationality, we realized the difference between his version and what the Prophet was calling to. At the end of Ramadan, myself and Hamid, we stayed together, read some more, and on a certain day, he lived in Brixton. He came to Brixton, and he was at Brixton, one of the radio stations, and a lady came to him and asked him who he was. He was in his sunnah, dressed in his sunnah, and he explained to him, and he said, my husband has been waiting to see a man like you for 1 year. He invited him home. When he went to the house, the man would not open the door to him. He was afraid of this behavior of this man, so he came to my home and explained to me. So we both went back to the man's home. That man was a man called Philip. Okay. When we get back to the house, he opened the door to us and he bid us welcome. After speaking for about 2 hours who we were, what we were doing, what we were according to, he explained to us that he journeyed to Ethiopia to go to his father's land. He was a Rastafarian, but he was not allowed to go to enter Ethiopia. So he came back and going to the desert of Sudan. One night he had a dream. The man who he described, that we understood this man was an Arab Muslim, could be the Prophet ﷺ, but he brought him 2 other men. And he told him, what you're searching for here is in your home. So he came back for a year waiting for these 2 men. So when Hamid came first, he recognized Hamid, but he should have come alone. And he didn't accept him. When I came, he said, we were the 2 men he was expecting. Anything we bring to him, he would accept it. So we spent 3 days with him.
Yeah.
We spent 3 days with him. And in the end of the Thursday, that week, they accepted Islam. We went to Central Mosque for the first Juma with him. And that's how the community started. The community grew. After that, his home was the mosque, the prayer room, everything was done from his home, was hit together, and the community grew exponentially.
So Philip became who then? Who did Philip become after he became Muslim?
Who came after?
What was his name? His name? What was his name after
His name was
Philip?
Philip Howe. He became Omar Kadir.
Okay.
Omar Kadir.
Is this Abu Bakr's brother?
That's right. And also, a few months later, I stayed at Abu Bakr's home. They introduced Islam to him. Normally, he used to come to the house, but staying in his home, because at the time I went through a process of homelessness, and he gave me some room in his house. And while I was there, he accepted Islam from me as well. So we named Abu Bakr, 2 brothers, Umar and Abu Bakr.
Okay, wait there now. So we have to go. We're gonna go back a little bit. So, you gave the Shahada to Umar, and Umar is the one who had the masjid on 25 Belford Road.
That's correct. But before that, we lived in a different house.
Yes.
In Stockwell Park.
Okay, but the first masjid was on Belford Road?
No. It was a masjid, a prayer room. He gave a room in his house.
Yes.
A musalla.
Yes.
Before he moved to Belford Road.
Yes. And then Abu Bakr came later on, and you gave him his shahada as well.
That's correct.
MashaAllah. May Allah reward you for that, Sheikh.
Amen. Amen.
Fadl, okay.
Later on, as the community grew and different sect, Sufis, Nation of Islam, Shias begin to come to us, try to get us in their Jama'ah. Alhamdulillah, I met a gentleman, my wife was expecting the baby, and his wife was expecting the baby, as Sheikh Salah. Sheikh Salah came into the community by myself because I met him, and he did the akika for my twins, and he became a visiting imam to us. And you know, his instruction.
Where is he visiting you now? Is he visiting you at Belford Road now, or you still in Omar's house?
No, we're still at Stockwell Park Estate in Omar's house.
Okay, Stockwell. Okay.
As the community grew, we need space, and again, Omar's contribution was to get another house, a larger house in Belfield Road, and we moved there.
Okay.
The community expand, and we had another imam who came among us. He's now in Jordan, not Jordan, he's from Ghana. He assisted for a while, and then I had a grant from Muslim World League to open an office. At the time, Abu Bakr and two other brothers was taking care of the community, and I was running the office in Brixton. And we
what was the office about, Sheikh? What was the office about? You had the office for what purpose?
It was to look after the growing community. So we started a magazine, Dawah, counseling, and it was based upon Dawah and counseling. And of course, we had a monthly magazine, which I still have some of the magazine here today.
MashaAllah.
From that office, we started Al Shahada Housing Forms. Large Al Shahada Housing Forms. And then proceed after that, you know, just to save time and events. Many things happened, you know, development. Brixton Mosque came to the fore. There were some squatters there. Abu Bakr and some brother went there. Myself, and we made them an offer. We had good relationship with the local council.
Yes.
We made an offer to move from that premises to another one, and we took the place over.
This is One Gresham Road
now.
In
the meantime, One Gresham Road. At the same time, Ishmael Hamza, another Ishmael, was running a community in Lobo Grove. And some brothers from Brixton moved to Peckham. So we have these 3 units coming together as Brixton Mosque community. And then from there, the community grows.
Okay, I'm gonna hold you.
That's the business.
Okay, I'm gonna hold you there, Sheikh. We can't forget our second guest, Abu Abdurrahman. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
How you doing, Sheikh? How you doing? You okay?
Alhamdulillah, barakallah.
Okay, what is also important is the second generation, and we're going to come to the joining of the elders and the youngsters a bit further down the line. But first of all, we want to know the background and how how you came to Islam and how you got introduced to the Brixton community. Fadl, Sheikh.
Okay, so alhamdulillah, my story isn't as gracious and flamboyant as Sheikh Kamal, alhamdulillah, mashallah, Kamal from 1975. So I actually accepted Islam in 91. It was 1991. It was some years of some short years really of searching. This is my history. I was born and raised some of my time in Guyana. My grandfathers on both sides of my family were pastors in the church, so I was brought up very much under the Baptist church. Scene. And when I came to England, my mother and father enrolled me in like a Sunday school, so I knew a lot about the Bible, and we always had some form of God consciousness, as they would say. However, something which my parents were also very much not Black Panthers, but they were very much aware of the racism in the UK. You don't have a different type of racism in Ghana, but not the same as this one. So they were quite heavy into the American Civil Rights movement. So they taught me a lot about Dr. Martin Luther King and Malcolm X. And so that always stuck with me. So I will move it quickly because I know we haven't got a period of time. So through my life, I'm the last part that blessed me with. I didn't realize that our last part had blessed me with many things. Being professional football, I've been doing many things, but never been satisfied with all the matters of the dunya that had come my way. When I was working, actually, I was working in the Home Office, and I was playing at this time, left professional football, playing semi-professional football. There were a couple of people at my workplace who were Muslims, who I knew, who I used to work with, and they gave me dawah. And then one of our brothers, who for our community, Abu Raqaya, he joined the Home Office where I was at Luna House at the time, and he also started to give me dawah. And then, because I used to play semi-professional football at that time, I used to get picked up at the corner. I had a house in Thornton Heath, and I had to get picked up on the corner. If anyone knows where Thornton Heath is, the clock tower, there used to be where the if anyone knows Thornton Heath now, you've got a big leisure centre there now. But that area all used to be an open area before they built the leisure centre. And some brothers, namely Dawood Okomi, Abdul Hakim Okomi, and sometimes Abdul Baker, Idris as well, they used to have a stall there. Used to have an open air stall there, and selling natural goods. And them seeing me, I'd seen Dawood and Abdul Hakim Okomi through the music scene, and prior to them coming to Islam. So I knew them through the rap music and breakdancing and all that stuff. I'd seen them around. So when I used to wait every Saturday, wait to get picked up, they used to come and give me dawah and tell me to accept Islam, this, that, and the other. I read the book Malcolm X, and I understood that Malcolm X became more dangerous to people actually when he accepted Sunni Islam, not the Nation Islam, feeling that all white people are devil, because I never accepted that. And a funny story, another brother, I wanted a haircut because I wanted to go to a party. I remember on the Saturday night, and Abu Raqaya was giving me dawah, and he said to me, "Look, if I come and take my shahada, I'll give you a haircut." Because he used to cut hair. He said, "I'll give you a haircut to look sharp for the party." So I thought, I'll do that. It's no big deal. I hadn't been eating pork for however long now, and I'd stopped. And I said, let me do it so I can look sharp for the party. So it came with what we called Abdullah Makur, we used to call him Abdullah Honda.
Yeah.
And they took me to Croydon Mosque at the time, which was the closest mosque to me. And I remember taking my shahada, and it took about 15 minutes to take the shahada, the things that made me say. But alhamdulillah, I took it. And from that point on, I never went to the party. In the end, the brothers just welcomed me, and mashallah, brothers welcomed me, and they introduced me to a lot of other brothers who are also well known amongst them. And then so that's me. Then they introduced me to obviously the brothers at Brixton. We used to go to Brixton Masjid at the time. introduced me to Abu Mutasir and Jihya, Jamia Mina Jasunna, and then brothers from there. And then I got steeped into very, because I was a person who used to read a lot, so I used to they used to come with a lot of proofs and evidences. This is what I liked, rather than just being told it's like this. So, and that's how I became Muslim and came to Brixton. So Brixton, I say Croydon Mosque, because some of the brothers lived in Croydon, and Brixton Mosque were my two local mosques. But Brixton was where most of the brothers used to congregate on a Friday. And I remember Abu Rakay and I used to have a little red Golf, and we used to drive down from our office every Friday to get to the Brixton khutbah, and then drive back and try and make that back in an hour and a half.
He was late. He was late many times then.
Many times, so many times we got late. We used to get in trouble, but we said we had to get down to the Brixton khutbah, because it was the only one that used to do in English. Really, the Croydon Mosque was never in English, so we never understood it, and it seemed to us to be a waste just going there to see that. So we used to go to Brixton because we used to know that. That's my story, really.
I'm gonna go back to shit. What was the vibe like for you as a new Muslim going to Brixton Masjid? Was it welcoming? Was it how did you like going to Brixton Masjid back in those days?
Well, because birds of a feather flock together is the phrase that they use. So because lots of people from Brixton looked like me, they welcomed me, and everyone was willing to have a conversation. They wanted to know how I become Muslim. And lots of people were new into Islam as well. We had some elders like Sheikh Kamal. Lots of people were new, and it was a very different vibe from Croydon Mosque. Croydon Mosque, it was like okay, it was a novelty, and because you're not from their ethnic group, there was always something that they used to felt like they used to keep from you. You're not really part of them, So with the Brixton, you felt part of a community. You felt part of one body, which is Islam is supposed to be. I know that even at the time, there used to be many firqa, many people from different strands of Islam. But at that time, right at the beginning, 91, because I became Muslim around about October, of 91, I think, around about then. Around about that time, people were very welcome, very welcome. That's the best.
Excellent. Sheikh Kamaluddin, you with us?
Yes, sir.
Now, I'm going to ask you, in regards to the beginnings of the masjid, creating a environment for the new Muslims and growing the community, what were your priorities, and who was with you at the very beginning, creating the Brixton Masjid community?
There was quite a few brothers. Ishmael Hamza, Abu Bakr, Abul Malik, and quite a few brothers who is not in the community anymore. Some of them have left, some of them have traveled. But I can name at least 4 or 5 brothers who were there. Some of them might forget the name because they're not there anymore. And our introduction to Islam was so interested that we want to make everybody Muslim. And when we get the opportunity, we were Dahis in Brixton. Omar was very prominent in Dawah, and we would begin to visit the Asian community because they were there in shops. But strangely, as our Haza pointed out, when we go to the Asian masjids before that, we would pray with the brother, and if we finish with the answer, are we Muslims? So we was not feel, as if we were welcome in those masjids at the time. As the community grew and the doubts sort of move, we begin to have a good relationship, because Brixton Mosque then in those days was like the United Nations of Muslims. We have Asians, we have everybody there, And then we did a program with Dr. Howe, who passed away, and I was the interviewee, called Return to Islam for Channel 4. And this sort of spread the message of Islam among the nations and to know that Muslims were among the black community. And this sort of opened the door to many Muslims of different race to become a part of Brixton Masjid. So Brixton Masjid was always been the United Nations of Muslims. To answer your question,
And
we did everything to make the brothers who arrived and sisters arrived, you know, though we didn't have a lot of knowledge, but what we had was sufficient to make people feel happy when they come there, as opposed to other masjids.
What were your main difficulties in growing this masjid at the very beginning?
The main difficulty was finance, to pay for the masjid. You know, we were not fundraisers. So we had to find ways and means, and we think that the Arabs would come to help. So we knocked at the door. They didn't help. None of them helped. And alhamdulillah, between us, we begin to raise money between ourselves. And a few of the Asians and Africans who came along, Arabs, who knew the value of Islam locally. Although they have small masjid around Brixton by then, it's not open masjid, but they would contribute. And we'd appeal to them. And they would, you know, give us money to pay the rent and pay for the different amenities in the masjid. Until, fortunately, one night in the month of Ramadan, an Arab brother from Libya came there, and he was excited about the recitation. So he introduced us to another person who was his mentor, and that led to the masjid being bought. And the Imam from Morocco was imported here. So we began to grow, you know, and develop. And eventually, you know, our brother who passed away, Rahimullah, Sheikh Ali, they came, you know, Abu Sama rather, came as the first Imam. And he was very, very prolific. You know, he did a lot of good work in Brixton, a lot of good work. You know, he was, you know, he introduced us to a different version of Islam in terms of translation, and Arabic classes started and things like that.
Can I take you back a bit, Sheikh?
Yeah.
Let me take you back a bit. Like last week, we got around to the stage where we were talking about the group of elders. Now, from what I heard, Abu Sufyan became the chairman. That didn't go too well. I don't think the community were too happy with his leadership. And then there was a group of elders formed. Okay, can you just talk me a bit about the group of elders and actually, how can you say, changing the community and changing the structure of the shura in the masjid, please?
During that time, I used to be a sort of an NGO in Africa.
Okay.
During that period of time, back and forth to Mozambique, to Kenya, different countries, doing some work in conjunction with Muslim aid, with Islam. I was very close to the masjid, so we cooperated in many things. And one of the trips I came back, after the Dawah Sophia came to the masjid, as Abu Rahman pointed out. Abu Sufyan became the Imam. And when I came back, there was a ton of letter for me about from the black community, how the way they were treated. And at that time, we learned we don't make rules against the leaders in our community. So we initiated the help of two students of Islam. Professor Nayabi was a Nigerian professor, and another brother who studied in Medina. And of course, they came to my house. We had meeting for about 6 months discussing the problem.
Yes.
Eventually, I was sent to speak to Abu Sufyan. Abu Hadi was there at the time, about his behavior and why is he, you know, treating the black community like this, etc. He didn't want to know. So the result went back to the Shiuks, and they invited him for a meeting. In that meeting, 10 charges was laid against him. And he was found guilty on all the charges, because there was evidence. And the Shiuks dismissed him from his position. And when that happened, the group of elders who actually started the process of the meeting wasn't to get rid of Abu Sufyan, was to change his behavior towards the black community.
Okay.
However, he
Well,
was
Sheikh, why
removed
would
from
you
the
why,
position.
why would you say towards the black community? Was he different with the non-black community? Do you feel?
He didn't welcome the black community in the masjid. You know, I think he was more in favor of Asians. That was that was his community. You know, he used to make very, very bad remarks about the black community, people coming to the masjid. And that's the report I had from various people. And
Okay.
they didn't feel welcome anymore, as they used to be when the community was managed by ourselves.
Okay. Okay. So the group of elders got together, and obviously your intention was to improve the leadership, improve the structure of the management. So what was the next step?
Yes.
What was the next step in after Abu Sufyan left? What did you implement after that?
Well, a strange thing happened because one of our very noble brothers throughout Abdul Malik was American, was with us, was expected to take over. And
Okay.
myself, Abu Bakr, who represented the community with the Shuyuks, was asked, who do we choose as the leader? Because they had Abu Sufyan in mind. At the time, shortly before this happened, I met Abu Bakr Abdul Baker. And I saw him as a person who was very interested in Islam, very nice young man. He was polite, you know, he was intelligent. And although he didn't have much knowledge of Islam, we saw him as somebody who had no problem with anybody in the community. So we recommended to the Shuyuks that there's a brother among us, young brother, not knowledgeable as far as Islam is concerned, but his attitude, his adab, his akhlaq was good. And we think nobody having a problem with him being the leader for the community, as long as the Shuyuk was around to help him to gain more experience and knowledge in terms of management. And after Maghrib, that day, Abu Sufyan, he came to the masjid with Shirat Abdul Malik, who was his mentor.
Yes.
And the Shuyuk announced that without his knowledge, that he has been appointed the leader of the community. It was a big shock to him, you know.
Okay.
It's very humble, you know. What do I know about Islam? But alhamdulillah, you know, he's an intelligent young man. And he took over the community, you know, and then a group of brothers was selected from the community of elders, a group of brothers from the existing community. 3 group of brothers were selected to be trustees, including myself, Abu Bakr, and Ishmael Hamza from the community of elders. And other brother was selected from different groups.
So would you say now this is a pivotal time in Brixton's history, that now you have a chairman that everyone agrees with, you now have trustees, you now have a so-called constitution, and things were looking brighter for the masjid at this time? Things were looking constructive and you was building.
Nobody knows, because that's something talked about. What we learn is based upon the history of the Prophet himself and the struggle he had to establish Islam. But if we should go to the history of what we went through to bring this masjid to where it is today, the struggle that people like myself, Abu Haja, was, you know, there from infant days. Another brother was left, you know, to bring this masjid to this point, that we can have a unified masjid. The development is strong, although we're still in need of finances to increase the size of the building and to maintain it. People that believe, you know, we invited and we seek the help of our Muslim brothers. They never help us. But the community in Brixton, which is very diverse, has been extremely helpful to their community in terms of its development. You know, we from a knowledge point of view, you know, we have the Shuyuks coming from Jordan, coming from Saudi Arabia, coming from different parts of the world. And, you know, we had to make sure that the community was educated, especially young youth was educated. Because
Yes.
many Muslims from different African countries and Arab countries came with their own version of Islam. But when we were introduced, alhamdulillah, from a student of Sheikh Al-Badr Rahimahullah, about the fahm of this religion, which brings us into understanding. We saw that as the hadith of Muawiyah saying, when Allah wants to bless a community of people, He didn't pick up the deen. You know, we saw this as their final achievement, while Allah's favors will become firm upon us. And to take that forward, become the first Salafi Masjid in Europe. Conferences was visited by people from all over Europe in those days.
I mean, this is one of the aims of this Zoom discussion, is to actually understand the struggle and the strife and the work that it takes to grow a community, to start a masjid, you know, starting from zero and building it up is very important. So I'm now going to go to Abdul Rahman. Assalamu alaikum.
Running out, so let me change this.
Okay, here we have our Sheikh Muhammad Kamaluddin, and now we have the youngsters coming into the masjid, referring to yourself. Abdul Haq is there now. Some of the brothers from Croydon, Dawood, Akomi. How did you see your role, or when did you get involved in the masjid itself and in the shura? And how did you see your role being someone who's actually working as a shura member at the time, and the fusion between the elders and the youngsters? How did that work?
Okay, so when Abu Sufyan was the imam of or the chairman of the masjid at the time, he chose a shura, and for him, what was important was the younger brothers who were more involved with the Jamia Minhaj Sunnah, because that seemed to be for him the brothers who had a little bit of knowledge and had a little bit of understanding of the manhaj and the way that he learned Islam through his trips to Sheikh Mukbal and whatever down to Yemen. So he surrounded himself with some of those brothers. And then Sheikh Kamal's mentioned the time of the committee of elders. So so there were, after Abu Sufyan was removed, some of the brothers who were on Abu Sufyan's shura, we said we didn't want to be on the other shura because we didn't like the way it had happened. However, over some time, it was seen as, if you wanted to bring the community together, then you needed to have the shura that the committee of the elders had chosen with Abdul Haq and the old shura. So eventually we asked, actually, because this was probably in 1994, we'd asked, I'd met Sheikh Ali by that time in Abu Suhaib, so we asked them what was the best thing to do, and they said, yes, come on to the shura. So we came onto the shura and started to try and move the masjid forward. But the important thing, for us at the time, there was the important thing for us was bringing the masjid forward along the lines of knowledge that we thought were correct, which was what we were taught was the Ahl Sunnah. That was the only way to do it. And if you think about the masjid at the time, it had lots of different people and factions in there. And some factions, whenever there's a power vacuum, which there was, because everything wasn't kind of stable, there were always lots of different factions looking to try and get themselves into Brixton Masjid, because people could see and envisage that, look, if you could harness this community, which has never been harnessed before, the Black Brixton community, who have got a reputation, had a reputation at that time for being, strong people in both in mind and body.
Can I ask a question? Sorry to interrupt you. At this time, was there a formal constitution and the name of trustees, and was Brixton Masjid registered at a charity at this time?
No, that happened when the building was bought. So that happened. There was a trustees code example, but that really happened when the building was bought, when we had to become a charity.
It wasn't really solidified at that time. Like there was people who may have wanted to come and take over the masjid, or there was like it wasn't stable.
It wasn't stable. So you had the likes of Faisal, who was around, and he had his people there trying to come and trying to take over the masjid. We felt you had the people like Abdul Malik, another Abdul Malik, who used to be in the community, used to come to give the Friday khutbah. Abdul Malik from Tooting, who had a section of people who wanted to come and try and take over the masjid. You had the previous occupants who were Sufi orientated from Norwich. Marbatun, yeah, who wanted to come and take over the masjid. So there was a bit of a turmoil. So having the young brothers who could stand firm in front of this turmoil, and this was only around about a year and a half, was one of the reason, another one of the reasons why it was really because Brixton was a bit of a melting pot. But the most important way in which to unite all the factions, to get everybody together, was to get them upon what we understood to be the Quran and the Sunnah. So based upon that, those are the teachings that we try to do, and we try to link people to the Quran and the Sunnah, get people to go to make Umrah often, go to Medina, and things like this. This was the aim at the time. I think we weren't, because as Sheikh Kamal said, money was always the problem, but in our minds it was prior to buying the masjid, people weren't that not that concerned because our tenancy was kind of secure with the council. But buying the masjid was a big move, because then obviously enabled us to have that stability, and we stopped anyone else from being able to come and take over the masjid. So that became a big point. Alhamdulillah.
Okay. Sheikh Kamaluddin.
Yes, sir.
How did you find the working with the youngsters then? Were they, how can you say, more energetic, more fiery, more? How was it? How was it the coming together of the youngsters and the elders in the Shura?
The Prophet ﷺ, said the best of us in the dunya become the best of us in Islam.
MashaAllah.
I never had problem with you, to my knowledge.
Mm-hmm.
I had worked before Islam, but it was the young people.
Mm-hmm.
The band, I was older than most of them, some of them double their age.
Mm-hmm.
And we get on very well. So coming to Islam was no different. I mean, the relationship improved, Mm-hmm. One of the problems that we have in the Afro Caribbean community, and I will say this, is that because of the fact that we haven't got a culture which has a history of respect to our own people. You go to other communities, you find people who has contributed, even small, to the development of the community. They are known, their name is on the register, and they are known, and a lot of respect is shown. With us, this has never been, for me, this has been one of the hallmarks that I think sometimes that my actions, that some actions are accepted by Allah, because we're not showing off.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas some people, they are known, I mean, people, how many people know that I contribute to start this masjid? Abel Father contribute to this masjid. It's not something that is one of the things that I have a lot of love for Sheikh Ali is that the respect that he showed for his teacher, and the ulama, we haven't learned that from Sheikh Ali. Allah speaks about Ibadah, the ulama. Sheikh Ali always talk about his teachers, and I listen to this. People like who contribute a lot to the dawah. Bilal Phillips,
Yes.
Abu Sama. These people are not known. They should be known. And should we show respect, we will criticize them rather than respect them. And this is the lack in the community. You know, you go to other communities, you see names and blackboard, and the people know about them. This doesn't happen among us. Alhamdulillah, maybe Allah will reward us even more because of our, you know, I wouldn't say we are piety, something that is among us. Maybe it should change. People should know who you are, what your contribution was, you know. But this I find with the youngsters today, if this was known more or established among the youngsters today, there will be a lot more respect among the youngsters for the elders in the community.
Yes.
And maybe they draw them closer because they will see mentors among us, know who we are, what our contribution has been, and what we can still contribute. You know, I think this is something that should be looked into.
Yeah, definitely. We will note that and try and implement that in the community, that we respect our elders, we respect the history going forward. Abdurrahman,
Yeah.
how was, I mean, looking back, how was the leadership, the chairmanship of Abdul Haq during that time? Obviously, he didn't know much about Islam, not experienced being a chairman. What is that position like for any person to be a leader of a community? Obviously, Sheikh Kamaluddin, you'll come in on this as well. You're dealing with marriage, you're dealing with divorce, dealing with shahadas, social problems, economic problems. You have to teach a community. All of this now is on, obviously, Abdul Haq's shoulders, your shoulders, Kamaluddin's shoulders. Can you just give us some insight into the responsibility of this role for any person, and any particular instances that come to mind? You can share with us.
So the first thing I would say is that any good leader is only as good as those people he has surrounding him. Any good leader is only as good as those people he has surrounded him, giving him or her good advice. So Abdul Haq came from probably one of the advantages, and Allah knows best, is that Abdul Haq came from, I'm not a gang lifestyle, but I would say that he had a crew from before Islam, and fortunately many of his crew who before Islam accepted Islam and say at the same time and came to the masjid. So they already had, that crew already had a kind of hierarchical process within them. They knew who they were, and they knew their standing in it, and lots of them came to Islam at the time. So people like myself and Sheikh Kamal, we weren't within that crew. So, which was maybe an advantage in that we could advise the Haq without having seemingly having kind of repercussions to it. So we were able to give advice and make sure that there was I said we were fortunate enough. I was fortunate enough. Others was fortunate enough. Had connections to other people, like alhamdulillah, I mentioned on the thing on Saturday. I was lucky enough to have a really good early connection with Sheikh Ali, with Abu Suhaib, with Abu Muntazir. I travelled a lot with Abu Muntazir, and so I was well known and amongst the echelons of the Jamia. So people like Abdurrahim Green, people like Abu Ali Shakil, back in those days we're talking about.
So there was a good support structure at the time then.
Yeah. People like Usama Hassan as well, and Sheikh Suhaib as well. We had access to people who had some knowledge, who've been in the dawah longer, and we would often ask them for advice on how to on what to do and how we should do. We had a connection with some people in Medina as well, and I met Abu Sama in 1993 as well. So I was able to keep connecting with him and ask him ask him advice, ask, there's a number of people who were in Medina University who Abdul Hakim Al-Komi and I met when we went in '93, as well, which helps us. We kept in contact with them, and we were always asking them advice on what to do. So the best thing is the advice you take. Having the availability to have good advice. So we were able to always give, not just us, Sheikh Kamal as well, and everyone else, able to give good advice to make these decisions.
So very very early on, obviously when you got involved, you had contact with ulama in Jordan, Saudi. You had contact with students of knowledge like Abu Osama. Obviously Umar Jamaica came along. So mashallah, the masjid is now firm now when it comes to education, and now you're starting to grow and stuff like that. I'm going to switch back to Kamal Ad-Din. Concerning, can you explain some of the social issues that may have been happening at the time that you had to deal with?
I'll just, before I go to that, I would just say that Abdul Haq Baker has a character. He's an enforcer. That's his character, enforce things. And he enforced things based upon knowledge gained from the people Abdul Haq spoke about.
Okay.
So all we had to do was to remind him of the hikmah in implementing what he did, what he had implemented. That is it. So we were successful in that respect, and we gained the respect of senior people. Okay. In terms of social activities, there was a lot, because I remember these days, for example, Ramadan. For the past 2 Ramadan, nobody invited me to come and have breakfast with them away from the masjid. In those days, you get so much invitation to come and break fast. We have regularly dinners in the masjid, lectures going. We have outings for the youth, going to the park, public holidays. There was a lot of entertainment, and to make sure that the people didn't feel let down because they stopped going to the parties on the weekend get together. So we coming from that background. And as personally, I was an entertainer. So I know what they got, and I talk to guys and what they miss and how they feel. So we had to put something in place, including myself, among those crew, to make them feel that you're home, and what you're home is halal. Different between what is halal and what is haram and what is makruh. We had to show them this and make them understand it. So it didn't take long, and the family was involved. We never go out for an outing unless the wives, the daughters and the children go. Sometimes we go away like the trustees will go away like for 3, 4, 5 days down Kent in a place and invite other people to come along with us. So the what we could afford, and when we named such things, we will contribute for transportation and for the food, etc. So not like today, what we see now, everybody's an individual. We had a community, very well structured and taken care of.
Would you say now that they were the good old days? Would you say that there was a certain vibe, a certain was it a love for the deen, love for the brotherhood? What was it that made that time so golden, as they say?
It's to, one of the Sheikh, Ahmed Burgess, who came from Medina, who died, rahimahullah. He came among us once, and he came for a week. He spent 4 weeks, and the last week he said to us in a meeting in the masjid, he says, I had to stay for this long because what I saw here among your people, young Muslims, I couldn't understand how you have reached this level in such a short time. You're not a student of knowledge, graduate from the university. It's hard to find out. But what you did, you came from a background of Kufa, where you didn't have the cultural hang-ups, social hang-ups. And for that reason, you read the right books, kept in touch with the ulama, and you become right guided. So this is something that was said about us. You understand? So we had a blessing from Allah who have guided us, to the extent that it was exemplified in our behavior.
MashaAllah. Abdurrahman, similar question. Sorry, I'm just going to go to Abdurrahman. How would you describe those times, those early days, those days of when people were energetic, people were in love with knowledge, the shulk will come in. How would you explain those times? Share those times.
So, look, in hindsight, we can always look at them and say, I understand that from the deen, we know that the days before are always better than the time you're in now. And we know, as the Prophet ﷺ said, the best of generations, my generation, and those most like them, those most like them. So we know the days before are going to be better in some way, shape, or form than these days. So the reason why golden, because we were younger, we had the energy to learn the deen and try and practice everything that we try to learn. We had the energy to travel. Some of us, we used to travel. My weekend basically used to start on Thursday night. Definitely go to the masjid. Friday, Jum'ah at the masjid, leave work early. Then we used to, for example, a group of brothers used to travel up to Manchester, and then from Manchester back down to Birmingham, and then arrive back in London probably on the Sunday to a class in Balham, and then one over in Francis Road, and then back to Brixton. And that used to be our regular. We used to do it regularly at the weekends, from Friday through to thing, because we had the thirst for knowledge. Because we had time, less responsibility. And when you have time and Hamas and some knowledge, you can do a lot. So yeah, you can say they were the golden years, because we learned a lot, but we made a lot of mistakes during that time as well, and learned from mistakes as well. But we made some mistakes, but it was the biggest thing was that people were together, and we hadn't come. The fitna of the separation hadn't reached us yet, and it was this fitna of the separation that has really caused damage to the Salafi community world, definitely in Europe. But that's one of the things. Because before, the brothers who used to go, who were in Croydon Mosque, used to come to Brixton. So imagine all of ICT, what we have called ICT now. All of those kind of people were all gathered together in Brixton, and we'd all do one thing together. The brothers who used to come down from Birmingham, a whole bunch of brothers used to come down from Birmingham, see themselves as one community. The brothers from Reading see themselves as one community. Even the brothers from Peckham and Lewisham see themselves as one community. We don't have that now, because we were under one thing now. Luton, one community. We don't have that now, because all the communities are separate, doing their separate things, and because of whatever it is, they believe that everyone seems to believe that they're on the right thing and everyone else is wrong. So we don't meet together, except for maybe on a phone call here or there. That's the biggest difference. Before, everybody was together. However, we have to understand that this is something that was predicted. The Prophet ﷺ said this would happen at the head of every generation. There will be the Mujaddidun, and after the Mujaddidun gone, there would be splitting and problems. This is from a hadith. So the Mujaddidun of our time was Sheikh Al-Bani bin Baz and Sheikh Uthaymeen. And lo and behold, after they've gone, things split up. During their time, in their time in their life, this is why our dawah flourished. At the end of their life, after that, in the 2001, I think, Sheikh Uthaymeen died, 2001, 2002. Sheikh Mukbul died in 2001. He was the last of them to die. 2001, at the end of him passing away, then the split happened, and the split has caused where we are at the moment.
Well, Sheikh Kamaluddin. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Yes, sir.
No doubt,
if
we reflect on our mistakes, it's a way to learn for the future, isn't it? It's a way to reflect and say, well, okay, well, this was a problem here, this was a problem here. If looking back at those days, what were some of the mistakes that were made as a community, and reflecting how you would seek to change them now, if you get the question?
I think it will be very difficult to change because, you know, some of the behavior we had
Okay.
in terms of social behavior, as Abu Hajar pointed out, was
Yes.
based upon the fact that we had less responsibility. None of us have gray hair in our beard, you know. None of us had 2, 3, 4 children and wives, you know, and had to get your head down to make sure there's food is on the table.
Yes.
Those of us who have survived, how do you use the word survive, to still connect with Brixton Masjid, is a very few of us, you know. And we have the responsibility we have from a family point of view. It's sufficient for us to walk away tomorrow and say, look, my family come first. But, you know, Allah has helped us to be still contributing to the best of our ability.
Yeah.
Whatever mistake we made, to be honest, I don't record them. I'll be honest with you, because it's a matter of going forward based upon knowledge.
Yes.
And, you know, we had very good teachers. And when they talk, we sat and we listened, not like to somebody youth today. Islamic education is like entertainment. We wrote things down. I have stocks and stocks and stocks and stocks of literature written by my pen and cassette, hundreds and if not thousands of cassettes that I always go back when people come to my house and say, Abu Kadir came to my house and he didn't look at my cassette. He saw the shelf and he said, these are gold. You know what they were.
The days of
These are gold.
cassettes.
And if I could afford to have them translated now to floppy disk and something like this, it may be useful to bring back the adab and akhlaq we have in those days. Mistakes, we are supposed to make mistakes. None of us are perfect, but they were corrected. As we go along, we're corrected, and we do things the better way. And then you have different communities, develop, and you're dealing with different people. We are in Brixton, we are very, very diverse. When I was chairman for Brixton Master the 3rd time, okay, and when I came for the last time after I resigned, I met a community that I knew about, but I never really had to deal with them. This was the smaller community. I had to learn about these people. There was fitna between us. But within a couple of months, we become so united that, you know, we was crying with each other, laughing with each other, sharing each other's food, sharing each other's pleasures, visiting each other's houses. So we developed based upon the diversity in the community. And the mistakes is left something we left behind. We're still making mistakes because we are human beings, you know. And there's not a blueprint that we are following except for the deen of Islam. But how you deal with people, sometimes, you know, I had to put my head down. I hear certain remarks made by Muslims and address it privately with them and say, if you see it that way, my friend, I'm sorry, my excuse, but, you know, we want to go forward. So where do we go from here? And that's what we deal with things. So there's no enmity between us, irrespective of the mistakes we have made, you know. And, you know, Allah knows best, you know, the masjid is the house of Allah. And one of the things that I will hasten to mention is that when the masjid was bought, one of the things that came to all of us that now we have established the house of Allah. Before it was a Musala. This is our masjid, the house of Allah. And this is our biggest achievement, those who contributed, you know. And we hope that Allah will recompense us with one of those parties in Jannah, inshallah.
Jazakallah khairan, Sheikh. Okay, we'll come to the end now. I just want to summarize with both of you about some of the unique qualities of the masjid at that time that we can actually focus on and use as a way to build the community, get back to where it was in the past. What are some of the unique aspects of Brixton Masjid that we need to focus on in order to rebuild the masjid again? Fadl Abdul Rahman. And we're going to summarize about 10 minutes left, inshallah.
Okay, then it's, I would say that three things is the understanding of a couple of a hadith. First hadith is two hungry wolves let loose among sheep will not be more harmful to a person's religion than craving after wealth and status. Understanding that hadith, I think if we understood the craving after status and the craving after wealth, which people generally we have, that destroys our deen. That's number one. Number two is about nasiha. Good advice taken, and understand that people, should know how to give advice, know how to take advice, because nobody is perfect amongst us, with the exception of our Imam Umar, maybe Abdul Wahid. We don't have any people who we can say are shuyukh in knowledge. We have enough to say shuyukh in age, shuyukh in knowledge or sheikhs in knowledge, and having the access to in knowledge. When I mean knowledge, I mean real knowledge. I don't mean that I've read a book and I've listened to all of Sheikh Uthaymeen's tapes. That's one thing. That's great. Alhamdulillah, that's good. But you're not going to be someone who knowledge and knows how to implement that at all. Of all the stuff that just to give example myself, of all the stuff that I've read and been, I learned the most when I sat with Sheikh Ali for over 3 years, from probably 2007 to 2010, intensively for two weeks at a time. That's the one I learned the most about, not just knowledge and manners. Being able to sit down with the shuyukh, not just have them teach you, but to teach you, see their manners, see how they deal with the situations. And the last one is the understanding of the Muslims are one body. If one part aches, another part aches, and that's something which we lost. We had that at one time. I remember a time when, for example, niqab pulled off in Lidl, and the news came back to the masjid, and it's not something we're proud of. The news came back to the masjid. There must have been even Abdullah al-Faisal was there at the time. When that was heard to us, all differences were forgotten. Everybody got up and was going to Lidl to deal with the situation. I'm not saying that that's what we need to do, arms out. No, I'm not saying that. But it was just to notice that our one Muslim sister, no one cared whether she was Salafi, Sufi, this, that, that. They cared that she was from our community, and something had happened to her, and everyone was getting together just to resolve that one issue. And that happened many times. People who were opposed to each other in regards to sometimes their manhaj. When it came to someone feeling some pain, someone got hurt. That happened on more than one occasion. Everybody came together. We don't have that anymore. It's like, for example, is she a sister from that crew, from those people? I'm leaving her. If she's a sister from my crew, then I'll go and help. And that's the big difference. Before it would be, she's a sister from Brixton. Let's go and help. He's the brother from Brixton. Let's go and help. We don't have that anymore. So it's just that one part of the body hurts, and we all feel pain. And it's really that those are the three things, I think. If we fully understood that, then maybe we can get some way back to the glory, better than the glory days.
Jade.
Because we don't want to make the mistakes that we made before.
No. Sheikh Kamaluddin, we're gonna give you the last word, inshallah. If you can summarize for us how we can help the Brixton community grow, what the masjid, what the community needs, and how we can refocus and rebuild. I'll leave it to you to summarize, inshallah.
One of the things that has concerned me over the past few years is that although we try to get younger people in the community to be leaders, we have a method as the older brothers and the board of trustees, that before you become chairman or a trustee, you have to put some work in and learn some experience how the masjid functions and what is required of you. And we try to implement that among the youth that we see as the ability and leadership. There's a problem that I call a problem because what happens, what we had in the old days was not a respect for elders. And I stress that point. Today, you find people come in the community, helpful young men, and they get a group of brothers together, young men together, because the emphasis on the youth today, you know, to justify our stay in this country, to give dawah to you, to bring them to you. But there's so much problems universally. And having thought about this last conference in Luton, I had the opportunity and the pleasure of speaking to Sheikh Ali. And I put this to him. I said, much of the youth that we're giving dawah to is so disenfranchised. You know, they don't see any model coming from even the people, the Shiyukh, the Islamic world, the Arabs, the war going on, the killing, you know, and they feel disenfranchised. They feel that they not belong to a community that they have read about. And I went on explained to the Sheikh. And the very knowledgeable brother, he smiled and he looked at me and said, Sheikh Kamal, teach them their religion. I think this is the only thing that is important, that we have to find a way of teaching the youth, because they are the men of tomorrow, the men and women of tomorrow, and they have to take over when we are gone. You know, they have to have a sense of understanding where this community comes from, where it came from. And then secondly, if you're not a graduate from some university, I don't think you have much respect to say anything. This is my experience. Many things as I've seen in the masjid, that brothers try to do things and it fails because experience is not a part of the education that goes into the educational process. It's very scholastic, mashallah. Experience is locked in to be passed on. Like what my father used to tell me. Many things I said to my father used to tell me, you know, and it's signing. So I think this is one of the way of going forward in getting more experience. Let the elder people who've been coming for a long time share their experience and show the result of the experience and the patience that they have to endure to reach them. Because in Islam, you've got to have patience in whatever you do. You want to be tested. This is what is needed for us to go forward, inshallah.
Jazakallah khairan, Sheikh. Well, my hope is that we can set up a forum or a place where the leadership in Brixton Masjid and the community can come together and share their views, and obviously the audience, those who are listening, can also participate and discuss the needs and whatever's happening in the community, so that we can discuss it and build. Hopefully I can get some of the present administration and hopefully Umar Jamaica to come on to discuss the present issues they're facing and how the community can help and how we can grow. We've now gone over an hour and 20 minutes now, so we have to come to an end. Jazakallah khairan, Sheikh Kamaluddin and Abdul Rahman, for participating. It's been a pleasure. No doubt I'm going to call you back again. We need your knowledge and your experience to get across to the community what's needed in order to grow. And hopefully that we can not necessarily start afresh, but the aim is to actually to grow and look for a brighter future. So without further ado, Jazakallah khairan once again. Jazakallah khairan for all the attendees. Please look out for, there will be a part 4. Maybe the title will change, but we'll see. But inshallah, we'll see you next Wednesday again at the same time. We'll be discussing about the Afro Caribbean community in Brixton. Jazakallah khairan. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
بارك اللهم بحمدك، أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت، أستغفرك وأتوب إليك.